Greetings, Lewis, and welcome to another video. Today I want to talk about an old card that used to see play over a decade ago, and now, as of recent, we've been seeing that card being played in one or two strategies. And the card I'm mentioning is called Archfiend Heiress. For those who don't know, Archfiend Heiress is a level 3 Dark Fiend monster, and it reads, if this card is entered the graveyard because of a card effect or being destroyed by battle, you can add one Archfiend card from your deck to your hand except Heiress. You can only use the effect of Archfiend Heiress once per turn. So essentially what this card is, it was a card that was introduced alongside a plethora of Archfiend support. I think it was back on 2013, if I'm not mistaken. I know the set is called Judgment of the Light. I just don't remember which year it was. I think it was either 2013 or 2014. However, so this card got introduced into that set alongside a lot of Archfiend support. Archfiend was pretty much like as its own strategy back then. However, the strategy for Archfiends did not take off. Archfiends just were very lackluster at their win condition. It didn't like fulfill a lot of like what the deck needed to do, and the overall strategy as a whole did not just fit well into the format. That being said, Archfiend Heiress has actually been seen play during those years, and it was basically to tutor or help other fiend strategies. One strategy that was apparent for this was Dark World, and the card that they were playing that back then was Trans Archfiend. Trans Archfiend was basically a searchable fiend monster that just had a discard effect that did not discard for cost, and that was very pivotal back then for the Dark World strategy. Another thing that made Trans Archfiend like very relevant is the fact that when it got destroyed, it can grab fiend monsters that were banished, so it had synergy with the Gates of Dark World. And like back then, the format was a lot slower than it is right now, meaning that the strategy was very good at securing the mid to late game. Another strategy that saw a really good amount of play was Infernity. And Infinity Archfiend was pretty much like the linchpin of the deck. The whole core strategy behind this deck was to always resolve this card as many times as possible. And one of the ways that you would do that is by sending Archfiend Heiress to the graveyard via cards like Armageddon Knight or Dark Grepher. And you will pair them up with cards like Stygian Street Patrol or with Archfiend Palabyrinth. Archfiend Palabyrinth was another searchable card by Heiress that was played in the Infinity strategy, and it pretty much just helped you resource loop like your fiend monsters and just combo off that way. So now that we talked about how it was played back then, let's talk about the modern era. Like, where can Archfiend Heiress fit a role, and is she actually going to fulfill a role very well? So, the first thing that, well, it wasn't the first thing that came to mind for me, but it was something that I pretty much glanced at when I was looking at all the Archfiend cards, and that card is Archfiend's Glashly Glitch. This card got introduced in Tactical Masters alongside the Labyrinth theme. So if you're playing like a Labyrinth themed strategy, much like I was doing very recently ago, this card is very good to consider in your strategy because it can tutor out Ghastly Glitch. And Ghastly Glitch can actually dump Heiress, and Heiress can add you another Archfiend card. Another card that is to consider is Berserk Archfiend. this came out in Phantom Nightmare. Basically, this card was talked about to supplement the loss of Charvara in the Unchained deck. Uh, so if you decide to play a strategy involving Unchained cards, you can pair up Berserk Archfiend alongside Archfiend Heiress, and essentially something that you can do is, like, for example, Aruha pop Heiress, Heiress add Berserk, Berserk pop the Aruha, and then Aruha just summon, like, for example, Charvara or Chiyama, and you just keep going from there. As a going second card, this card is actually strong because it also gains attack, like targeting your opponent's monsters. So this already applies pressure on the board. Unchained is already known to be a strategy that is very strong going second. So this card is to be considered if you're playing that strategy. Another card that was worth looking into is Wise. This just came out in Legacy of Destruction. This is basically support for the Lightsworn theme, but it is an Archfiend monster. So if you decide to, like, play a Lightsworn strategy and decide to implement Heiress as another card for your deck, Heiress can just grab you into Wise, and you can just combo extend with your Lightsworn monsters that way. This also opens the door of just pairing the Lightsworn theme with just other Archfiend cards that you can just play in the deck, besides just Wise. Another card to talk about is called Bone Archfiend. This came out in the Crimson King structure deck. This card heavily influences the Red Dragon Archfiend archetype. And yes, I did say Archfiend in that name. So this card is not super pivotal to a strategy, but it is a card that really helps the strategy, like, very immensely. And again, Archfiend Heiress is just another card that can tutor it. Before I talk about the last card, we're going to make one honorable mention, and this card is not TCG legal yet. However, we might receive it later this year, and that is Archfiend's Arrival. So Archfiend's Arrival is a monster that is influenced by the Chinese Sarcophagus theme, which is also introduced in Legacy of Destruction. And essentially, this card is tutorable by Chinese Sarcophagus. However, if you decide to pair the Sarcophagus theme alongside the Heiress, you can also just have this card be searchable and just pair it up with your other Chinese Sarcophagus cards. It is also level 6 Fiend, so that is a very important detail as well, if you know where I'm getting at. And the last card I want to talk about, and the reason that this discussion got sparked up in the first place, is Simul Archfiends. So, for those who don't know, Simul Archfiends, I think came out in Power of the Elements. I'm trying to remember. It's a very interesting trap card. Basically, it reads, neither player can special summon monsters with the same types as they already control. Ritual Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, or Link. So right now, in this current format, Snake Eye and Tenpai Dragons are like the two more dominant strategies, and those two decks are extra deck climbing strategies. Essentially, their win condition involves, like, summoning, like, one monster from the extra deck and then using it as a stepping stone for another strategy, for another extra deck monster. In Tenpai Dragon's case is with Bident Dragion, and in Snake Eye's case is with from Promethean Fire Princess. So with Simul Archfiends, like, lingering effect, basically they are pretty much stuck in the tracks. They are not going to be able to, like, fulfill their win condition, like, very thoroughly, unless they exhaust an extra amount of their resources. And this card is searchable by Archfiend Heiress. So if you have a strategy that can play these cards, I'd say just give it a shot. I have a regional this upcoming weekend by the time of this recording on the 18th, and I'm there's a very high likely possibility I will be implementing these cards into my strategy. As for what strategy that is, you'll have to wait until my deck report. But yeah, I hope you found this video informative to your liking and understanding. Keep practicing and keep dueling.